Another remake of a classic makes me think of retro game and movie collecting. Makes me think of the sponsor of this video. This video is brought to you by Whatnot. Whatnot's a live stream shopping app where you can buy, sell, or auction, well, pretty much anything your heart desires. Because you may have a pretty sweet collection going, but we all know the hunt never ends. The thing I like about Whatnot is it's more personable. Yeah, you have those listings that are buy the item without the human interaction element to it, but I dig the personable approach. Watching people present their items, interacting with them, bidding on the ones you like. I like that you get to know the sellers, build rapport, ask questions in real time, by extension, get an answer. Okay, so The Running Man is not a remake of The Running Man from the 1980s that we know and love, like I said earlier in the video. Though saying so earlier in the video made for a smoother transition to the sponsorship segment. Now, this is actually an adaptation of the Stephen King story. Whenever there's a new version of a classic being made, there's always that thought of, but why though? Does it justify its own existence? Edgar Wright was saying he wanted to make a Running Man movie that was more faithful to the book, so cool. I mean, in short, no, there's always that really justified. But cool. So Glenn Powell plays Ben Richards, a down-on-his-luck husband and father. His daughter's really sick. They can't afford medicine or take her to a proper doctor. So he gets enrolled in the Running Man competition. Best case scenario, he makes it the full 30 days, he wins, they get $1 billion, start a new life. Or at the very least, because they get paid every day he is alive, he lives long enough to net them enough money to, again, live more comfortably. Now, the Running Man competition in here is different than the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. The Running Man competitors are out in the world for 30 days with social media being social media. Every camera, everyone's phone, every person out there is looking for Ben Richards. He needs to lay low, not get seen, hopefully make it to the end. Funny observation, Stephen King's kind of having a year in 2025. But between The Long Walk and The Running Man, they're really leaning into that Stephen King dystopian future thing. Feel like it's the stay calm before the crash pamphlet on airplanes. How close is that crash? Is it coming? Now, first off, Glenn Powell's great in the movie. We've seen Hollywood try to make the next big action star a few times before. However, I get it with Glenn Powell. The guy's likable, he's good at the job. He can play smarmy yet likable, smarmy yet damaged. There's a pattern here, but I liked him as the rough around the edges Ben Richards here. Other than Glenn Powell, the next two real standouts in the movie are Josh Brolin and Colman Domingo. Now, Josh Brolin's Killian this time around, but Killian is not the host. Killian's the owner of the whole thing, the TV personality, the host, different character entirely, played by Colman Domingo. And they're both great. Colman Domingo has that eccentric charm about him, an absolute madman in mad times. Really playing up the drama that he knows is bullshit because it's fabricated because, hey, we're talking about the media here. Well, I guess not the media, it's a game show, it's entertainment. So we're talking about the media here. I thought he was actually the standout in the movie. He just doesn't have a lot of screen time. He and Josh Brolin both don't. Josh Brolin, I feel like this is the easiest buck he's ever made. He probably filmed all of his scenes in 1 or 2 days. Walks on set, gets his fuck you Thanos money, leaves. I mean, bless him, good for him. But yeah, most of the movie does revolve around Ben Richards, and it's in the POV of Ben Richards. However, if this Running Man is the more accurate to the book Running Man, I can see why changes were made when adapting the Running Man to the big screen the first time around. This movie has pacing issues, man. It's not the only thing plaguing it. This movie does have some interesting themes it's going for here, but when you get to the point you know it's going to go to, the big super media corporation isn't forthcoming. They're really shady, fabricating lies, throwing it out there in the name of controlling the masses. Maybe it feels old because a lot of movies have done that at this point. Maybe it feels old because we're living through it at this point. But this movie had a lot more downtime. It was getting me some restless legs going. The 2025 Running Man is a half an hour longer than the 1987 Running Man. Yet the 2025 Running Man feels about a half an hour longer than the 2025 Running Man actually is. Because, and not to compare it to the original too much, but when the original does have things that stand out as better, it's kind of hard not to. The original had more colorful characters. This movie just kind of has people coming after him. And the biggest thing that feels like a gut punch is it's an Edgar Wright film. And I love his films. I always look forward to them. But this movie has tonal conflict. It's all over the place in terms of humor, action, and drama. And those are things Edgar Wright usually blends really well in his movies. It's one of the things that makes him him. You can usually take to the bank that he's going to blend those elements well.
Not this time.
I feel like for the first time in an Edgar Wright movie, I was sitting there going, that humor's out of place. Characters felt like cartoons when the rest of the movie around them didn't feel like that. A couple moments where a character dies in a way that made me think, was I supposed to laugh or feel something? Feels conflicting because Well, I felt neither of those things. You know what this movie felt like with the execution that's supposedly more in line with the book? He's on the run, he has to avoid people, he has to avoid tech coming after him and scanning for him. It feels like Dollar Store Minority Report, a book that was written before the Running Man book was written, but still. Sadly, of the Edgar Wright movies I can think of, this is my least favorite Edgar Wright movie. The action was entertaining, I'm not going to say it's not. I'm just not going to remember this one in T-1 day. Yep. Already forgot. There was a thing that bothered me, but I don't know if it was a movie theater thing. So trying to keep an open mind to it, but if you do watch The Running Man in theaters, let me know. But yeah, that's the sound design kind of sucked. There were gunshots, explosion, but none of them had impact. There's a scene with a grenade, and the grenade explosion is just kind of doesn't have that punch you want from an explosion. Can't help but sit there being like, I could have watched this on my TV. But again, that might have been a movie theater thing. I worked for movie theater companies. I know how cheap they could be. Which includes letting technical issues just kind of sit for a while. Alright, so the 2025 Running Man. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Or you know what? Screw it. What's your favorite Arnold movie of the 80s? I mean, you know, it's adjacent. Whatever it is, whatever you think. Comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more. Want to see more, click right.
Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing The Running Man. This is directed by Edgar Wright. I admire Wright a lot as a director, and I think he stands out a lot more than a lot of the mainstream directors of his type, the way that he's able to create these colorful, kinetic, zippy fantasy worlds. He's just thrilling to me in unique ways, and there's not that much originality these days in the mainstream, so that's part of why I cherish him. And knowing that he was going to be reuniting with his writing partner from the magnificent Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, that made The Running Man, for me, one of the more anticipated films of the fall. So I went into this film with a lot of expectations, and as usual...
So that's why Michael Cera was in it. It's Michael Cera, right? Top cast. My internet has been very slow lately. They keep reporting outages. Yeah, Michael Cera. This guy from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Juno, Superbad, Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. I never knew what this was about. I saw the other ones. I never knew what this one was about. This guy I've not seen in years, this actor.
That was a mistake. What is happening with these movies these days? Seriously. It's like the feeling that I get with this movie, with a lot of movies lately, it's like making a cake, a big, beautiful cake, but it's like we conveniently forgot the flour. It's like something very, very important is missing from a lot of these movies where, yes, it's like the pieces are on the board, all the talent is assembled, and yet the souffle never rises. There is no sense of immediacy, not that edge of your seat adrenaline rush that you want from a movie like this. There's no humor. None of it flourishes amidst all the calamity here. It is a double insult, in my opinion, that this is an Edgar Wright film, and it just makes me wonder what went wrong here, just because not only does nothing land from the action to the humor, but it's as if nothing really stirs your attention or gains any traction to begin with. Wright is obviously trying to make an adaptation of The Running Man, but he's trying to make one that's more faithful to the Stephen King novel. And after The Long Walk, which came out, I think a couple of months ago, it feels like we're in the thick of this dystopian resurgence. And naturally, these films are very Hunger Games-esque, and so they involve commentary on class structure and media control over its citizens, etc. So that means that this version of The Running Man is going to be quite different from the Arnold Schwarzenegger version, which is the quintessential kind of 1980s machismo zeitgeisty fun. I would say this one, at least I think it's attempting a heavier tone, one that has that kind of brute force energy to it. I felt as if I was in a dream state watching this film, and I do not mean that in a good way. It's like the movie could never find its footing in reality. That's more how I mean it. It felt like it was caught between, these weird tones, this need to create a kind of violent, punchy, steely action thriller, but also trying to find, again, the humor in that, the rhythm, so it has that cheeky, breezy, flighty, comedic quality. It just wasn't working for me. And Glenn Powell, I admire the hard work and I admire that he really tries, but in this instance, he was a huge problem for me. And it's often been a problem for me, the way that, there's this attempt to bring him more to the forefront, make him more the leading man. The smugness in the demeanor, the inability to register real vulnerability on screen or true frenzy in the eyes, risk in the physicality. To me, that's part of what makes him feel like a one-dimensional protagonist in a movie like this, but he is the perfect antagonist, I would say. Or I think he can work as a leading man, but it's got to be in something that is more lighthearted, where it's like slapstick comedy is going to be more the defining attribute, like Anyone But You, as an example. I thought he worked well there. But while trying to adapt that leading action star type of swagger and charisma, to me it comes off as awkward and unconvincing from Powell. It's as if he rehearsed his action faces in the mirror, but maybe a little bit too much, and at this point it's like he's psyching himself out. There's a little bit of like a half-assed Clint Eastwood impression going on here, with a little bit of the Tom Cruise comedy, the physicality, absolutely. A little bit of a Zoolander thing going on, but again, without finding the sweet spot within all of those tones. It's constantly like he's being jerked around between like this Hulk smash type of anger. It's almost like a caricature of an action hero. And then there's also this tone of trying to be funny and light and also like self-aware. And I don't know, there's just no convenient entry point. As I was watching it, it's like the lights are on, nobody is upstairs. It's like so much is going on in the movie, and yet I feel absolutely nothing. There's just a huge disconnect. This is an action, like apocalyptic type of movie, so it's like you're thinking brisk, airtight should be the pacing style, but no, this had a ton of air pockets, and obviously there's a lot of conflicting angles to it. You have the media angle, and you have all these different eccentric characters coming in. Honestly, there were aspects of it that kind of reminded me of Cowboy Bebop, but with none of that natural swagger and ease. Nothing about this felt natural. It felt like second-rate Blade Runner, second-rate Die Hard. And the world building in this film, it's like you can see the ideas behind it, but it's ugly and drab, and there's almost an unfinished quality to it. And the action sequences, they are solid enough conceptually, I'd say, but it's incredible just how little tactile energy is behind this movie, all kinds of movies. It's like you don't feel the blast of a gun, or it's like you don't feel the viscera of a punch to the gut. It's very soft core, but it has this smugness about it as if it's not. So it makes the whole experience even more awkward to experience as an audience member. At a certain point, I considered taking a nap during this film just because I was so comfortable, but then I was like, oh yeah, I have to review this. Gotta stay awake, so yeah, obviously I don't recommend this film. I don't know what happened here. I love the action genre, and I do think these days it's almost as dead as the romantic comedy genre, but I did have hopes for this one, obviously because of the director and the talent attached to it, but yeah, it was a swing and a miss. I do think it's important to acknowledge the hard work that goes into certain things and not to completely dismiss everything about it. But I just think when the writing isn't there fundamentally, it makes the rest of the film hard to experience. It's like without a solid core, the branches that are attached just don't have a rhyme or reason. But yeah, that's how I feel about this. So that is the review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits, and I also...
I don't care about all that. Okay. Let's see what else to say.
Meet Gym Monster 2, your all-in-one smart home gym. Set it up anywhere, no limits, no installation.
You know, I once went on a lad's holiday in Barcelona, and in theory it sounded like an absolutely blinding weekend. We were in a beautiful city with free reign to do whatever we wanted, we had plenty of spending money and a bunch of fun stuff lined up. And you know what? It was a disaster. One of our guys had his passport stolen within like an hour of arriving and had to spend half the weekend at the British Embassy trying to sort it out. Another decided to crash a go-kart into a wall at full speed and fractured 2 of his ribs, and a third man went completely AWOL on the first night and didn't show up again until the following afternoon. And it wasn't even me. Also, it turned out that one of our group was a bit too fond of the old Bolivian marching powder, which was just superb when he decided to have a fist fight with his bathroom mirror at 4 in the morning and almost got us all arrested. The point I'm making here is that sometimes things that look good on paper turn out to be complete disasters in practice. Like The Running Man, for example, a remake of the 1980s Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that promised to be a faithful adaptation of the Stephen King novel it was based on, written and directed by Edgar Wright, a man who gave us the legendary Cornetto trilogy, and starring Glenn Powell, a charismatic leading man who's rapidly moving into A-list territory. When you've got so many positives on your side, what could possibly go wrong? Well, everything, as it turns out. The Running Man is a fucking calamity of a movie, slow and boring with all the pace and dynamism of a Chris Stuckman review, a convoluted and meandering storyline that leads to the most rushed and anticlimactic ending imaginable, dogshit level dialogue, an emotional tone that can't decide if it's a gripping thriller or a goofy comedy, and a protagonist with all the depth and charisma of a puddle of congealed vomit. This movie somehow manages to be inferior to the 1987 original in every possible way, and honestly, I can't believe it was made by the same guy who gave us Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. Anyway, somehow I endured it so you don't have to. The least you can do in return is listen to me explain why you shouldn't. So
It's almost as if he watches it just to hate on it. And I don't like it when people go to see movies that they don't like. I hate that when you go to see a movie you don't like. That's just, you come off as fake. You come off as really fake. No, damn, I forgot to clean up. I'm forgetting everything nowadays.
just like the original movie, The Running Man takes place in a dystopian future America, where the mostly impoverished population is ruled over by sinister megacorporations who keep them distracted with violent and sensationalized TV shows, the biggest of which is The Running Man. The rules are simple. Actually, no, fuck that, they're not simple at all. They certainly used to be, because the 87 movie understood the importance of pace and urgency and given the audience a simple objective to focus on. Not so this time. This time, runners have to survive for 30 days on the loose in America. They're given some spending money and a 12-hour head start, and that's it. The catch is that they're not just being hunted by professional killers like in the original movie. Now their real enemy is the entire country. Anyone who spots them can either kill them or turn them in for a cash reward. Also, they have to send in a tape every day through a magical bullshit Dropbox system to prove that they're still alive. Enter our main man, Ben Richards, a blue-collar worker with money problems who needs medicine for his sick daughter, so he signs up for the games and soon finds himself competing in The Running Man. But before you can say, "I'll be back," his cover gets blown and a kill team moves in to take him out. He barely makes it out alive, but the team are accidentally killed by a gas explosion, and the tape that Richards sends in afterwards to explain what happened gets deep-faked to frame him for the whole thing. Slowly he begins to realise the game is rigged against him, there's no way to win, and it's all all just being manipulated by the network's corrupt director Dan Killian to drive up the show's ratings. Faced with a game he's never going to be allowed to win, Richards decides to stop running and go on the offensive, making contact with an underground resistance group that are trying to expose the whole thing, and sets his sights on Killian himself. But will he finally get his revenge, or is there another twist planned for him? Like I said earlier, most of the right elements were in place to make the Running Man a success. A desperate man forced to risk everything, the paranoia of being surrounded by enemies and hunted every moment of your life, a race against time to stay alive, a sinister corporation willing to lie and kill and sacrifice their own people, all in the name of money and ratings, a plucky underdog fighting his way through a game that's been rigged against him and gradually winning over public support, even taking the fight to his enemies by the end. All of that sounds great. The problem is, it's been done already and far better in the 1987 movie. And I'm not trying to defend the Arnold flick as some classic of modern cinema or anything, but it was at least a serviceable story with a novel premise and decent pacing that actually had something to say about the violence, greed and sensationalism of American entertainment at the time, worked in a decent cast of interesting characters that all fit neatly into the plot, and even delivered a satisfying payoff for the hero and villain. And it did all of this in a lean and mean 101 minutes. The 2025 version does none of those things. It's over 30 minutes longer, but it somehow accomplishes less. The plot is flabby and disjointed, meandering from one uninspired set piece to another, and held together by a series of ridiculous conveniences that crop up whenever the writers have backed themselves into a corner. 3 different times in this movie, Richards has to be bailed out by some good Samaritan who turns out to be connected with the Resistance in some way. Wow, that was lucky, wasn't it? And all of this leads to a major problem with pacing. There's absolutely no sense of urgency to any of this movie, and part of that problem stems from the pointlessly extended.
I know he gets his woes from Jeremy Jahns. They keep saying about pacing. They're all feeding off of each other. That's what makes them seem fake. Just like the show about the whole aspect in the movie of the media, the whole thing is wigged against them. All this YouTube reviews are rigged. They're just feeding off of each other. It's all fake.
Time frame. Why stretch this plot out over 30 days when you're not actually going to do anything with those 30 days? It could just as easily be 24 hours and it would make for a much more interesting story. Normally I champion movies that respect the source material, but when the source material comes from the drug-addled mind of Stephen King and you're trying to turn it into a fast-paced action thriller, well, changes are going to have to be made. Like, remember when Stanley Kubrick adapted The Shining and changed like 50% of the book to produce one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and Stephen King was so butthurt about it that he made his own version a decade later that followed the book to the letter, and it was a fucking disaster. Well, then you begin to realise that what works in a book doesn't always work on screen. And the thing is, I expected so much more from Edgar Wright, who used to be a master of high energy, rapid editing and razor sharp dialogue. Movies like Hot Fuzz are some of the leanest, most efficient scripts you'll ever read, and watching The Running Man, I just can't understand how it came from the same person. Richards just kinda drifts from one place to another. There's way too much downtime and lengthy exposition scenes, mostly telling us stuff that we either know or suspected already, but in the least efficient way possible. There's none of the sharp, witty dialogue you'd expect from Edgar Wright. Everything's so clunky and on the nose that it felt like a movie made for preschoolers, where characters have to keep reminding the audience of what's happening and why. Richards himself explains about a dozen times that he's gonna do anything to save his family, as if that wasn't obvious enough already from his actions. On that subject, Richards is a completely wasted character. The script can't decide if he's a loving and compassionate family man pushed into a desperate gamble out of sheer necessity, or an angry anti-authoritarian who wants to tear down the system and destroy anyone who gets in his way, so it tries to juggle them both, and the end result is a character who meanders as much as the plot he's stuck in. I really feel bad for Glenn Powell on this one. The guy's got a ton of likability and charisma as an actor, but it has to be used in the right way, and this movie isn't it. He looks lost most of the time, trying to get to grips with a character that makes no sense, reciting the cringy dialogue without much conviction, and generally feeling like a complete waste of talent. And it's not like he's surrounded by big personalities either. The hunters from the original flick were this rogues gallery of larger-than-life characters that totally fit with the movie's violent game show theme. They all had their own weapons, personalities, and style, and they felt like bosses in a video game that had to be overcome, but there's absolutely none of that here. The hunters are just generic soldiers with nothing to them, and again, I can't believe what a wasted opportunity this was for a guy like Edgar Wright. Even the character of Amber from the original movie, who was right there beside Richards for most of the film and went from a hostage to a reluctant ally to a romantic lead by the end, doesn't even show up in this version until like the final 30 minutes, and even then the film gives her nothing to do. She's just a hostage and then she literally gets ejected from the movie, and that's it. I hate to keep coming back to the Arnold movie, but honestly, everything this version gets wrong about the story, characters, pacing, world building and setup, that film absolutely got right. And I'm beginning to think it actually deserves a bit more respect than it got. Either way though, you should take my advice and run as far away from this shitty remake as you can. Save your money, save your time and save your sanity and go watch something more enjoyable, like a fucking exorcism. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Starting a fashion brand shouldn't feel impossible. Other print-on-demand platforms claim to support creators. You can only build your dream fashion brand with Tapstitch. Premium quality blanks, on-trend silhouettes, and a curated...
The new Running Man movie just came out, and I've seen a lot of people aren't loving it. It hasn't been getting the standard Edgar Wright glaze. A lot of people have been saying that it's just not amazing. I haven't really seen anyone call it like outright bad or anything, because it's not. You know, we're not talking about like a War of the Worlds level catastrophe here of a film or anything. Most people are just saying that it's kind of underwhelming and mid. And I've just now watched it, so I'm here to tell you definitively that's kinda right. It's far from a bad film, it's just a very standard one, like it's very generic. It's an action film that has some very good action sequences, but it has quite a lot of problems, and if you are someone that's a big fan of this director's work, if you are an Edgar Wright superfan, I would wager my left shoe that this will probably be towards the bottom of your list of his movies. This is a shockingly studio-safe production, it feels like. It doesn't really inject any of the creative personality that his films are known for. It really feels like more of a paycheck than a passion, which, all I'm saying right here, probably doesn't matter if you don't really care who the director is. Like, if you're not the biggest Edgar Wright enthusiast with dick in hand for every single thing that he slaps his name on, it probably won't matter to you because you're not going to be holding it to this higher standard of what his previous films have had. And I think that's totally fine. But I think pretty much anyone that watches this will walk away being like, oh, that was an enjoyable action flick, but nothing beyond that. So this film is not at all related to the 80s Arnold movie, which I haven't seen in a long time, but when I was a kid I remember really liking that movie, and this one is very different, and I think that's probably a good thing. As I understand it, this borrows more...
I mean, they act like, you know, it's just gotta be this. It's not going to be anything on Avatar level. It's not going to be, you know, change your life, make you think about, you know, what you're trying to do with your life. Like me, I'm trying to find a job, and I really do want to get into IT to use my degree, but I don't know how far I want to go. I just know that I want entry level, but there's been a few movies that inspired me to, you know, keep applying and maybe look into why my resume might not be particularly catered to these positions. Because a lot of times when I'm doing something life-changing, like trying to apply for what I want, there's all these things you have to do. You have to fix your resume, you have to make a cover letter, and all these, you know, you have to know what platforms to search on. You can't just use Indeed because a lot of times they just ignore your application whenever you apply. And so it included certain movies like Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water have inspired me to look at my situation differently and find out through research what I need to do differently about, you know, finding work that I really want to enjoy, and stop accepting things like working in stores and customer service level, because I don't want to work in a customer-facing level anymore. And, you know, those are the type of films he's talking about, as movies that will change your life, that will get you to change your, change how you see the world and see yourself and all that, but nothing today is really gonna be like that, minus Avatar. I mean, so I don't know why people are acting like this needs to be some life-changing, life-saving film. It's really just an action flick. That's really what it is, and I enjoyed it. Because I wasn't going in expecting it to be, like I said, life-changing. And they know this already, and I know they're not getting their hopes up. So why are you acting like you did get your hopes up and you didn't? And you didn't get that, That's what I'm saying. A lot of these reviewers are fake because they go in, they act like they go in getting their hopes up, but they don't really get their hopes up. And so you knew what you were getting yourself into when you went in. Therefore, don't speak like, well, this movie is overly disappointing, and you knew that it was going to be disappointing. You knew that. You went into this movie watching it. No one's going to be disappointed. Willing to be disappointed just so you can make a review about it. You're basically wasting your money so that you can talk bad about it later. That's what a grifter is. You're not a real reviewer, because a real reviewer will not anticipate anything. Will just go in it complete blank, like fresh. Maybe you've read something about it, but you go into it knowing you're going to judge the movie by its own merits and not by what anybody else has said and not by any expectations. And that's what a lot of these reviewers do not do. They don't go into it fresh. They go into it already expecting it to be bad, therefore it's already bad for them.
From the Stephen King novel that it's based on, which maybe fans of the original works will appreciate, but I just think that by incorporating a lot of these elements that I imagine were present in the book, it leads to a little bit of bloat in this film where it starts to kind of have these pacing issues where it kind of just wants to stumble through scenes to get to a bigger moment without building a real connection to characters. It feels like it was more focused on getting things from the book onto the big screen without really making it flow super well. And to kind of elaborate further on what I mean by that, a lot of Ben Richards' survival in The Running Man is kind of out of his own hands, where he just happens to luckily run into someone that is far better equipped to win this game for him, and is able to kind of piggyback off of their ideas for survival and kind of just go along with their plan, which I imagine in the book is probably not exactly how it plays out, but in the film here, it just feels like a very convenient plot armor for him, where he just happens to run into these guardian angels that literally sacrificed their lives in order for him to win the Running Man. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but this is what I'm saying, where it feels like it has these issues where it gives you this action, and then it wants to give you the next part with the action, where it's a couple days further. But in order to do that, you have to meet this character quickly, in an alley that gets you to that point, and you don't spend a lot of time with that character, and then you get to the next action scene, and then you have to meet another character, because that's going to get him a couple more days into the future for the next action thing, and if that character dies, you don't really care, because you don't fucking know anything about that character. It just feels a little wacky when it comes to its pacing in that regard, which makes it feel...
He's trying to talk about this like it's the pacing of Megalopolis, which... I say, I don't go in. I didn't go in anticipating that movie would. I went in thinking that Megalopolis was going to be good because visually, it looked good. It looked like it was a good, interesting movie I've never seen before. And I didn't know if Megalopolis was based on anything prior. So I was like, well, I'm completely new to this. So I go into thinking that it's going to be good, but ultimately I'm disappointed because it's pacing. But I myself didn't enjoy it, so I'm not gonna, try to persuade other people to not enjoy it just because I didn't. I had a personal issue with it, and so, but I'm not gonna make a whole video reviewing it because I hated it so much. So I don't like to review things that I don't like because I consider that wasting my time. I only like to review something if I like it. And honestly, I don't know if I want to make a review of The Running Man or not. Because, I'm really trying to find a job and I've got other things I want to dedicate my time to, and I definitely don't have enough time to do one today. So, I can give you a little mini review. Well, it stars, Glenn Powell, the guy from Top Gun Maverick, and this movie is very action based. It's very action packed. It's funny. It is funny, even hilarious at sometimes, but it is cliche because it's an action flick. So don't go in thinking it's going to be really too different, because it's not. But that's not a bad thing. That's just a symptom of the genre. That's expected, because films very rarely do anything completely different. So there's nothing wrong in that. It's just that you shouldn't really raise your expectations with it based on if you've seen the trailer or if you've read anything about, if you know anything about this 2025 film. So, but I give it about a 3.5, 3.7 maybe out of a 5. On a 10 scale, I would say 7 out of 10. See, I'm not outright hating the movie, but I didn't outright love it, but I'm not going to smash on the movie just for the purpose of making it do bad in the box office.
Feel a little underwhelming when a lot of the times Ben Richards isn't the one who's like really beating the network. So I've kind of already dove into some complaints, but like I said, I think it is a fun action movie, and I think the entire premise is very fun. So it's set in a world where barbarism is entertainment now with this thing called the Running Man, where you have this team of 3 that gets chosen, and then they use basically AI or whatever technology they have in that universe to fake all of these videos and stuff to paint them as horrible, terrible people, so that way all the world roots against them and wants them to die. And the objective of the game is to survive while they're being hunted by their fellow civilians that hate these people because they're led to believe that they're scum of the earth, truly irredeemable garbage, and they're also being hunted by hunters who are professional killers. And again, the goal is just to survive. If they survive, they get $1 billion. They basically get set for life. And the objective is to last.
Which in reality wouldn't set you for life. You'd have to use that money smartly. You'd have to invest it somewhere and get it to, because anytime you invest it, it grows money, it gains money throughout the years. And that's how wealthy people get rich. It's how the rich stay rich. They invest their money somewhere where it can continue to make money. So, and that's the problem I had, just having a few $1,000. There was times like when I first saw me this first 1,000, I'm like, yeah, I could use that money right now. And then when it got up to like 6,000, I'm like, yeah, or 8,000, I think it was. I was like, yeah, I like to give my review during my sessions here of watching other reviewers, because my review often includes whether or not I agree with them and why. And so, like I said, when I saw that his pay up to like 8,000, I'm like, wow, just because he accidentally killed off one of the goons, and then later on he gets 10,000. I'm like, wow, this seems like a good thing. Like, if I would totally like to take the Running Man, just to get an easy $10,000. Well, not easy 10,000, but
A month for our main character Ben Richards. We get a little of his backstory. He and his wife have a daughter who's sick, but because Ben tried to be a good person and report like some injustices in his business, he's been blacklisted across every job imaginable because the network that owns the Running Man owns the entire country.
So he basically tried to blow the whistle, and they fired him, and I guess he couldn't get a lawyer that would help him because they wrongfully terminated him, which is something I'm dealing with a few jobs. Yeah, this seems like it's very California based, because that's what happens in California. It's said that California has some of the best labor laws in the country, but almost every lawyer I've talked to about it's like, well, California is an at-will policy. How can you have some of the best labor laws if you're an at-will policy state and your employer can fire for anything? And it says that there are a few exceptions to the rule of at-will policy, which includes if you were fired for blowing the whistle, if you were refusing to do anything illegal that your manager was trying to get you to do. So if your manager was trying to get you to do something that was against the company policies or do something illegal or unethical, and you refuse to do that, and that manager then demotes you or sends you home, suspends you with or without pay, or just outright fires you, terminates you, that would be considered a wrongful termination because you were simply refusing to do something illegal which would get you and the company in trouble. So you're actually obeying, you're actually doing what you're supposed to do in regards to the company, because that manager is acting unethical and trying to engage in illegal behavior. So, it seems like that's what Ben Richards was trying to do, is basically keep himself from doing something illegal, and not get his company in trouble, and actually report his company. Because if you report your company, sometimes, your company, especially in California, despite what it says about having the best labor laws in California, they will fire you if you report your manager. Because your manager will make up something like, well, he has repeated tardiness, he has repeated absences, or has done things illegally or against the rules himself, and you're just thinking, well, you don't remember that. But see, at Will Policy, they can say whatever they want to get you terminated, and they don't really even need a reason to terminate you. They can just flat out let you go, terminate you without a reason. And like I said, you have to have a solid alibi in the defense, and it's like you have to have a lawyer that's willing to take your case. You have to convince, and a lot of these lawyers, they offer free consultations because they know that a lot of people that contact them won't even have a case. And the whole idea is the lawyer will not get paid until you get paid. So it's kind of like, well, you have to show me that you have a case. And honestly, I have a case at every single time I've contacted a lawyer with all the jobs I've gotten fired from in California. I have a case. Most recently with the United States Postal Service, the post office, I have a case because I was converted to what they call full-time PSC window cloak, but I got fired because of something I did. I just kind of gently threw my phone down on the desk out of irritation, and I got fired. But, ever since then, I've been feeling like the running man, like everybody's been against me. And it's like I can't even maintain a job,
So he can't get a job, and he can't pay for the medicine for his daughter that would save her life. It's the flu, basically. And he can't even pay for that because he can't get a job. It just leads to him signing up for the Running Man in order to go through this death gauntlet. And the movie is very on the nose about its message with all the propaganda and how it alters all the videos to make people hate each other, and so that way it ignites this fire, so they want to kill Ben and the other two people that are chosen with him. And it's a very fun world that it builds here, but I just don't think it explores it overly well, and it doesn't do a good job of balancing humor with seriousness. This feels like a movie, and I imagine in the book too, that needed to be more serious. The wackiness in Arnold's 80s film, I think, fits in that context of The Running Man, which is drastically different from this one. Some of the campiness in Arnold's, I don't think should have been tried to, emulate in this 2025 one. It just feels like a tonal, clash there. It feels like you need to buy into the seriousness of everything happening in that world, but then that's undercut with every character Ben meets, and even Ben himself, joking pretty frequently. I wouldn't say it's MCU levels of quips and quirkiness. There were just a few times where it felt really out of place for that. It didn't do a good job of weaving that in there in a way that didn't feel jarring, especially because the humor wasn't really landing in my eyes. I don't think many of the jokes were knocking it out of the park, we'll say. I don't think it was worth sacrificing some of the seriousness that I think probably should be there to make you really care and buy into it, for the sake of a quick line or two that's a silliness. But it's not the biggest deal in the world, because the movie really relies on two key factors. Its action sequences, which I do think are good. I think they are filmed well. I think they are really exciting action moments in this movie, and there is a lot of them. And two, Glenn Powell as the main character, Ben Richards. Glenn Powell does a great job. I think he was a really good action movie star here. I think he did a good job of being someone you can root for, and also being a psychopath that does have the natural, X factor to make him realistically have a chance of winning this game against all of these experienced killers and just literally every stranger on the street. So it does a good job of being like a dad that you want to see win and get back to his family, as well as like this psycho that you're really excited to see kill some hunters. I think it was very good performance from Glenn Powell here. So overall, I did enjoy the movie. I think it is an entertaining action film. No, it's not the strongest action movie or anything like that. And yes, admittedly, it is one of Edgar Wright's weaker films. But I still was entertained. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah.
They offered me $3,000 for my minor accident. This Harvard AI calculator showed me it was worth $85,000.
Hey guys, John here, and I just got out of seeing the new Edgar Wright Running Man. I think the trailers to it have looked great, and here's the basic gist. I thought the first 2 acts of the film were really solid. It had the charm, the charisma, the one-liners, the action was great. It was fun. But then somewhere around almost the end of the second act, quite honestly, the movie completely falls apart. What was fun becomes convoluted. What was charming became cringy. And they just started making all these leaps. Like, I don't know. I felt like this movie went a half hour too long, and I don't mean that as in it had too long of a runtime. I just felt like it hit a pretty good spot where it could have gotten out and finished ahead. But honestly, like the last 45 minutes were just terrible. And sometimes I'll see a movie where, like, if the first 2 acts are good enough and the third act's bad, I'll still kind of enjoy the movie overall. But the third act was so bad, it kind of sapped my enjoyment of the first 2 acts away. So, look, is this the worst movie I've seen this year? Absolutely not. And there's a lot of upside. Again, the first 2 acts are really great, but I'm walking out of this movie pretty disappointed because I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan, but this one isn't it. Anyway, we'll talk more about it on the John Campea Show tomorrow, and I'll talk to you then.
The words from Edgar Wright used to mean something, and we need to go back to that time because I don't know what's happening anymore. Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim, Baby Driver. I mean, what's happening here? These are some of the most stylized, kinetic energy, electricity surging movies. Because when you tell me that Edgar Wright is making a remake of The Running Man starring Glenn Powell, I should walk away from that experience levitating. On paper, I should love everything about this movie, from the filmmaker to the star to the plot synopsis. Tell me where you heard this before. A desperate man, Ben Richards, who is poor in the working class, is trying to save enough money to help his sick daughter, is convinced to enter a deadly competition game as a last resort, where first his anger turned him into a fan favorite and a threat to the entire system. Am I talking about The Running Man or am I talking about Hunger Games? So that all sounded great to me, and then the trailers would come out and then I would start levitating, my soul would leave my body, and I was like, oh my gosh, this trailer has so much juice, we are so back. So I sat down to watch The Running Man last night. I sat through the whole thing, and the movie ended. I forgot what happened, and I can't believe we're here now. What happened to the Edgar Wright sauce?
Where's the lamb sauce?
Because if you hid the director's name from this movie, if you just hid it from every marketing material in the credits, whichever, there is a 0% chance I would have said Edgar Wright directed this movie. I did not think I would see the day where Edgar Wright directed a very standard generic action film. Everything about this movie was so mundane, so flat, pretty bland. I don't know what happened. Who neutered him? Did someone crank the dial on Edgar Wright to 0? Everything that he has been known for, from his stylized editing, the camera movements, the frenetic pace, it is just not here. I don't know if that was a deliberate choice by him. I don't know if it was a studio. I don't know what's going on. I'm willing to make all the excuses in the world because I cannot accept this. We cannot lose Edgar Wright. And I guess I should just say this off the top. This movie isn't awful. It's not one of the worst movies of the year. There is some fun to be had. There are some scenes that I enjoyed. But overall, this is absolutely a disappointment. So much about this movie just feels clunky, as if I was wearing concrete brick shoes. Every step I would take just felt unstable or wrong or rocky, and I don't like it. From the pacing, which can get tedious at times, the writing was pretty clunky, the satire doesn't hit because some of the jokes don't hit and the tone isn't consistent. You add that up all together and this movie never reaches the heights that it should have for a sustained period of time. Because even as I was sitting through this movie and minute by minute would pass and I started to get more nervous, like, oh my gosh, this isn't hitting, I really hope this ends well. Even that was disappointing because it felt like this movie, through the whole 2 hours, whichever, was building towards something pretty epic, or at the very least more profound than what we got. And yet again, we just entered generic action movie mode. I don't understand. Where was the personality here? And listen, I like the movie thematically, okay? I like all the messages, alright? Anti-authoritarian, whichever, the media is lying to you, everyone's being lied to, we're all being put up against each other, nothing's real anymore. The rich are just taken down and like poking fun and laughing at the poor, whichever. I appreciate all that, okay? I really do. And in fact, I like when this movie actually has time to explore those themes a little bit more. Is it overwritten? Sure, but I don't really care in things like that, okay? I'm not looking for subtlety with themes like this. Just try to not mind that these are obviously multimillionaire actors that are saying this about the rich. Okay, anyway, there are moments where I felt like the movie was about to take a step up. No spoilers, I promise, but there is a scene where Glenn Powell is in a car with someone who's obviously afraid of him because of how he is being portrayed through this game show. And he talks about why he felt he had to do this and what he's fighting for and how the things that were happening previously were fake and how he's being manipulated and everyone's being manipulated. And it's a weirdly emotional moment that's set right in between a pretty heavy action scene. And while it certainly makes no room for any subtlety, okay, it really lays it all out there. I found that pretty effective, and Glenn Powell is excellent in those moments. And then it's like a switch would be flipped where we would have to go back to what we were doing, and then the generic action movie mode would take over again. I understand that a lot of the large stunts were done pretty practically, okay, shout out, but the way they look in the movie, the way it's cut in the movie, the way it's edited, it's just, it doesn't have that same flair. I thought, knowing that some of these explosions were real and some of these stunts were real, with Edgar Wright at the helm, I thought we would be in for something so mind-blowingly sick. And instead it's just like, yeah, it's, you know, it's wow, it's an explosion. That's crazy, I guess. I mean, let's move on, I guess. And it's just one of those rare moments where I feel like for maybe the first time, I'm just not really thinking too much about it, but I feel like the people behind the camera is the one that failed in this movie. Glenn Powell has to do so much carrying in this movie, and he's incredibly charismatic, and he pulls off a lot of this very well. I think a lot of the actors are having fun, even though, admittedly, I actually do think a lot of them feel out of place. Again, as mentioned, some of the tonal shifts are just insane. I mean, there are moments where it's just all of a sudden there's so much crying, and it's like, we have not built up to this, man. This is whiplash. Listen, I'm just disappointed, okay? Not much to say besides that. I'm just disappointed. Of course, there are some fun moments in here, okay? It's not like I hated my life watching this. I think most general audiences will at least have a good time with it. But for people like me who know Edgar Wright's career and love Edgar Wright films, this is just not it at all. I'm in between scores right now, but for now, The Running Man, 2.5 stars. I don't know. Let me know what you all think once you see it in the comments. Let me know how wrong I am and how much you enjoyed this and how much Edgar Wright's style really came through in the movie. Whatever. Hope that happens for you. Didn't happen for me though. Please subscribe. Thanks all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. See ya.
There are certain directors out there that have such a unique style.
I guess I'm a general audience member because I don't really get into like too much of the director, you know. Okay, good. I thought I was hoping that I didn't copy the same URL. But I think that I don't get it too much into the who the director is and whatnot, because I just watch movies for movies, not really paying attention to, you know, the director. Even if it's Michael Bay, I just don't do it because I don't think that it really matters. I mean, you know, because I just watch a movie for a movie. It's like I'm not into Francis Ford Coppola, and I didn't like Megalopolis. You know, I really should maybe make a review about it. How I didn't like it. I'd have to rewatch it.
You pretty much know when the trailer fires up who's responsible for the film. I'm talking Christopher Nolan, I'm talking Steven Spielberg, and I'm talking the guy responsible for this new version of The Running Man based on the Stephen King book. You may have fond memories of the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger film, but the 80s was a long time ago, friend. And we don't make new movies anymore. We just recycle, reiterate, reinvent, and in this case, remove any of the distinct style that Edgar Wright used to have. But is that necessarily a bad thing? What a stupid question I just asked myself, and now I'm going to answer it in a spoiler-free review for The Running Man. Say, if you miss the 80s as much as I do, go ahead and hit that subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you weren't born in the 80s, oh, fuck you. Also hit the subscribe, because I want all shapes and sizes and ages here. Okay, let's talk Running Man. And I think in order to really talk about this movie, we have to get our expectations in check. If you are a fan of Edgar Wright films like Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, my favorite of his, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Love, all those movies, then you're probably pretty amped up to see this one. And I was fired up too. I also brought along my 16-year-old daughter who thinks Glenn Powell is just dreamy, although she prefers him with the cowboy hat from Twisters. Regardless, and I will say, Mr. Powell, how I have underestimated your abilities, sir. He is a beast in this film, hitting the comedic timing, doing the action hero thing, and oddly sounding an awful lot like George Clooney. Maybe it was just me. If you've seen the movie, let me know if you were trying to place his voice, and I was getting Clooney the whole time. Not Cruise, Clooney. Unfortunately, the film itself is good, and nothing more. And that just kills me to say, because this is Edgar Wright, folks. I listed off some of the achievements. He should be knocking a film like this out of the park that marries futuristic sci-fi wackadoo with political and social commentary. And as someone who knows how to place a camera in a fun spot or do some quirky editing, it's so lacking in this film. I would believe if you told me this was a Ron Howard film. But like I said just a second back, if you remember, it is a good movie. I had a fun time watching it, but what keeps it from being great is a pretty piss-poor third act, some awkward pacing, and a film set in the future that oddly doesn't do a ton with the future world that it's playing in. There are shades of him here and there. I love the constant callback to this Keeping Up with Kardashian-esque show that's playing on screens throughout the movie. Sometimes our protagonist will even sit and watch it for a little while. You also have the always reliable Josh Brolin as Killian in this film. He's the evil bad guy, the owner of a massive entertainment network that's feeding lies to its audience 24/7. And Glenn Powell's character, Ben Richards, he's gonna get a front row seat to the bullshit, as his name is gonna be driven through the mud while he's just trying to make it through the day. The plot to The Running Man is not deep or complex. It's a straightforward film about a guy who's on hard times, can't hold a job due to a bunch of corporate BS going on. He's got a sick kid and a wife at home. They're just trying to make ends meet. It's your classic pre-Hunger Games scenario. You have all the poor people in the slums, and then you have the rich assholes on top looking down, making us dance for coins, turning us against each other so we keep our eye off the prize, which is the fact that this isn't a fair life we're living in. It's almost as if The Running Man is a timeless tale that's completely applicable to pretty much any generation known to man. This is honestly such a puzzling one to talk about because, again, Wright's name is all over this thing, but it feels so generic for him. I have the same takeaway leaving this movie as I did with Predator Badlands. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. It's like the smart kid coming home with the report card and it's filled with all C's. I was expecting A's and B's, but on the other hand, I'm also happy the kid's at least passing. And that's kind of where I put The Running Man. It's passing. The music, while noticeable, I suppose, is doing nothing creative or new, which Edgar Wright is known for. His music is always driving the scenarios. He's so good at those sharp edits, that snappy dialogue. Everything has a flow to it. Skip it to bop it bop pow pow. It's like jazz music. But the rhythm in The Running Man is off, especially later on when Michael Cera joins the crew for a little while. While he does bring some energy back into the film that's running a little bit stale for a bit, it also leads to some really rough action scenes where our hero Ben Richards, he's showcased his valor several times already. Now in these moments is just kind of a lost puppy dog. Where should I go? Oh, there's people shooting through the doorway? Why don't I just stand here while they reload and scratch my head? Oh, I should leave? Perplexing decisions. Actress Emilia Jones, who I'm not familiar with, but she looks like 4 other actresses blended together, has a good chunk of dedicated time later in the film that completely derails the momentum. And I couldn't help but think, like, why are we introducing a new character now? And what's the purpose for it? But enough about my hang-ups. Let's talk about the things that do work. Again, Glenn Powell steals this film. He's very energetic. He's very high energy. He's very fun to watch. Coleman Domingo plays Bobby Thompson. He's the host of The Running Man, which is a TV show, but also a reality show where 3 different contestants have to try to stay alive up to 30 days. And they win $1 billion. This is some Dr. Evil shit right now. But Coleman's clearly having a good time with this character. Since there are 3 contestants, we also have actress Katie O'Brien, who I've seen in like 4 other movies this year. She's completely blowing up. I'm glad for her. I think she's a really solid actress. And then the third dude is the comic relief who really is never funny. He's from SNL, one of the budget Lonely Island guys from the new generation. Anyway, we have 2 out of 3 of the characters.
He's actually one of the writers. He writes the skits. He's one of the writers that write the skits for the show. For the show Saturday Night Live, so... Well, Alan's hating on him. I don't know why Alan does this. He does this because... I'm sorry, Adam, not Alan. Adam. I was getting him confused with Alan from... Well, not really. I just got the name confused. Adam. His name is Adam, not Alan. There's 2 A's in both the names, but... Why does he do this? Why does he continue to, like, hate on... And Adam, don't say you're not hating because you are. Why are you hating on the guy from SNL, you know? Why?
To watch, not too bad. And I suppose, sadly, that's what I would say about 2025's The Running Man. It's not too bad. Not too great either. It's just there. You could do worse with a little over 2 hours at the theater. And yes, this film is, for some reason, over 2 hours long. It's rated R for violence and swearing. I'm desensitized, so I don't actually know why it's rated R. There must have been a good amount of swearing, because as far as the violence is concerned, I just don't remember. Maybe there's some stabby stuff going on and a tiny bit of blood here and there. Nothing's really going to be dropping the jaw, I'll tell you that much. Glenn Powell does pop the T at one time, if you're wondering. I hope I can see Glenn Powell's rippling abs. Yes, you will get that. Unfortunately, you won't get the rippling balls and shaft. I think that's the most fitting place to stop. If you're looking for highbrow reviews, clearly this is the place for them. Subscribe to Adam Does Movies on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I post movie reviews, commentary, live streams every Wednesday night, almost on a weekly basis. It's quite absurd how much content you get for free. And that's all I have for you. Hopefully I see you next time. Take care.
In Pokemon Legends ZA, battles now take place in real time. Timing and positioning are crucial. Become the very best trainer in a citywide battle royale. Pokemon Legends ZA. Evolve your experience.
Welcome to The Running Man. If you're trying to make a new adaptation of a Stephen King book that's also a kind of remake of a cult sci-fi classic from Arnold Schwarzenegger's 80s heyday, you might end up kind of a child of 2 worlds. And Edgar Wright's version of The Running Man aims to do just that, but the trick with trying to hit the center of a Venn diagram is that you might accidentally end up in the middle of the road. I'm Clint Gage, and it's time to start running. This is my review of Edgar Wright and Glenn Powell's The Running Man.
So kiss my ass twice. Right there.
Kiss my ass twice.
Is why you can win this game.
The Running Man of 2025 is the product of a few iterations that came before it. Most of its DNA is from the Stephen King novel from his days in the early 80s, using the pseudonym Richard Bachman. It was a heady piece of speculative sci-fi that's dark and brooding without a lot of room for hope. But The Running Man is also an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie from 1987. The glory days of campy one-liner action flicks that left most of the meat of their source material off the screen. See also Total Recall, in favor of a little extra flash and sizzle.
Well, that hit the spot.
Now, all of this makes The Running Man primed for a revisiting, but it also makes the latest version of the story a little difficult to talk about out of context of the book and the previous film. So on one hand, there's the much darker source material that this movie is trying to honor in ways that Arnold's 80s version didn't come close to, but on the other hand, there's a fun action movie that needs to happen in there somewhere. Balancing these two factors is where The Running Man doesn't quite keep up. There's plenty in the movie that works, though. For starters, there's Glenn Powell. This guy is one of the biggest stars on the rise at the moment, and his performance in The Running Man isn't going to change anybody's mind about that. And this is effectively his first time out as a proper leading man action hero, and it suits him for the most part. He tops off his anger-forward take on Ben Richards with just the right amount of vulnerability. It's honestly the thing that Harrison Ford made his whole career on. Not saying he's Harrison Ford yet, but there's that strong and capable and all of that in the forefront, but he's also not trying to hide the fact that he's in over his head. But I do think I like the cockier than he deserves to be version of Glenn Powell, the one from Top Gun Maverick and Twisters, a little more than this angry everyman. But he still does a really solid job.
Stop filming me!
For me personally, my experience watching The Running Man was another lesson in maybe coming in a little too hot. I've been crazy excited to see this movie since it was announced. Edgar Wright directing this specific movie at this specific time felt almost too specifically perfect. It ticked all my boxes, so the film had a lot to live up to, fair or not. And while his signature is still on parts of this movie, I think it was missing a full dose of Edgar Wright. But the title sequence, for example, is full of slick shots that communicate a lot of information visually and very effectively. There's one that's in the trailer with Ben walking through the street past a line of people waiting for a chance to buy medicine. It's great movement and great blocking, the composition is lovely, and it tells a story all by itself. It's vintage Edgar Wright. The drone shot that follows Ben through the halls of a building that the hunters have him trapped in is another one like that. The move is not for movement's sake, it's rooted in the TV broadcast that the film was portraying. There's a motivation to the swoop and dive through the halls that's both cool to look at and it furthers the story. It's the kind of visual language that's made Edgar Wright one of my favorites, but it's also the sort of storytelling that only happens in fits and spurts throughout this film, and Wright's fingerprints aren't too visible for most of the movie. I will say though, the other real standout in the cast is Colman Domingo, who is having an absolute blast as Bobby Thompson, the ringmaster of the Running Man circus. Now for every bit of the film's color palette that felt a little drab, going from a gray and imposing near-future dystopian city to the brown and barren countryside, there was a sparkly jacket draped over Bobby Thompson. So Domingo is a bright spot, to be sure, but he also serves an important function for the movie. He's heartless enough to write off the hardships the runners have to endure and the lies that he's telling about them to stir up the messes with a, hey, that's showbiz, babe, kind of cockiness. But he's also savvy enough to navigate the dangerous waters he's swimming in. Plus, he's charming as hell, looks incredible. He's a ton of fun and deployed in exactly the right way. He represents just about everything that's wrong with the society being depicted in The Running Man.
This is America, goddammit! And we don't put up with no bullshit!
There are also a ton of great little details in the production design that flesh out the world a little bit. Things like a gender-swapped version of Auntie Sam saying, "I want you" on the cover of a magazine, and a fun Easter egg about who's on the dollar bills these days. These things depict a society that's given over to its baser instincts. They're a smart brand of throwaway joke that tries to keep the mood light where it can. But it's kind of the biggest issue with The Running Man of 2025. Thematically, it seems to work against itself sometimes. Like I mentioned up top, there's a danger when you don't pick a lane that you might end up in the middle of the road. King's novel was bleak science fiction that went hard. Schwarzenegger's was a campy explosion of satire, and Wright's version is a little bit of both, but not fully either one. My read is that it's a movie doing at least three things well enough, but not doing any of them as well as it could have had it just focused on one of them. First of all, it's not bombastic or absurd enough to feel like a proper biting satire. For sci-fi satire to really work, you need to create a little bit of distance between the work and the real world. The Running Man 2025's near-future dystopian is a little too near to the present to have a lot of fun with. It's a world of enormous wealth inequality, health crises, and authoritarian governments that doesn't feel plausible like it did when King first wrote about it 40 years ago, so much as it just feels familiar. So the film's conceit feels a little too mundane to cast our current society in a different, more questioning light, like a truly effective satire should do. Secondly, on the opposite side of that coin, I don't think it's subtle enough to work as a thrilling sort of melodrama, because every time the film gets heavy and dramatic, they double down on that weight. Now, like I said, the world of Co-op City on screen is a dark one, filled with every kind of problem we're currently facing, from affordable medicine to deep fakes lying to us. They're the kind of problems that deserve some weight. When Powell's Ben Richards goes to this intense, this is about my family place of earnestness, however, there's no release valve on it. Michael Cera has a moment in his brief stint in the movie that allows us a little bit of lightness in the middle of everybody's despair, but it comes and goes pretty quickly. I will say, though, there is a spectacular running gag making fun of the Kardashians, and I could have handled a whole movie about that particular reality show that pops up on TVs throughout this film. If everything else in the movie felt a little too close to home, this show actually felt a little dated, but in a clever way. Like, my God, in the future we're still doing this? There's really a smart bit of commentary there, like this celebrity culture stuff just never goes away and never looks any different either. So, you know, full marks for that bit.
And that's crazy, right?
That's weird.
But I think you can see the thriller part of this movie not fully working in Josh Brolin's villain Dan Killian as well. So as a network executive tasked with distracting the masses by televising a modern gladiator arena with a more open world flavor, he's a solid son of a bitch that's easy to hate. But by the time he has his inevitable come apart, I honestly didn't really buy it. There wasn't much of an arc to his villainy that might have been there had he been able to have as much fun as Coleman Domingo was having chewing up some scenery. Either way, had Killian arrived at the end of his story in a bit more of a believable way, I think the whole film would have been a little better for it. But thirdly, I don't think the action was inventive enough to make The Running Man really sing as an action film. There are fun set pieces, for sure, the aforementioned drone shot for one, the big bridge explosion from the trailers is another, but it's hard out there to make an action movie memorably action forward these days, and I don't think The Running Man quite gets there. And this issue in particular is not a foreign idea to Edgar Wright's work. Take Baby Driver, for example. It was a good enough excuse to make incredible car chases. Let's be honest, I don't remember much else about that movie outside of love the car chases, bet they had fun making it. The action in The Running Man, I don't think has that kind of staying power.
Holy shit. Is that C4? That's not for sale.
So, all of that to say, this film ends up trying out satire, drama, and action, but instead of being the prime example of all three at the center of that Venn diagram, it's just kind of in the middle of the road at that intersection. And listen, history might be kinder to this movie than I'm being, having just walked out of the theater here in 2025. Ultimately, the ideas central to this story existing in the first place are hitting a little too close to home right now to fully enjoy sitting with this movie. Weirdly enough, The Running Man might have more in common with Idiocracy than it does 1987's Schwarzenegger version, in that it's a fun bit of sci-fi that proved to be a little too prescient for comfort. It's like, I don't really know what to do with this right now. Ultimately, this is a movie that wants to have teeth. The subject matter deserves them, and Glenn Powell's performance as an angry everyman becoming a reluctant revolutionary icon does as well. And the statement Stephen King made more than 4 decades ago about the fickle nature of truth in the media and mass consumption and unequal distribution of wealth are every bit as relevant today as they were back then, so they ought to be taken seriously. And the story of The Running Man, in all of its now 3 iterations, is a great piece of sci-fi that I, for one, really enjoy, and I'm glad it's being retold. Edgar Wright's film seems to be caught in between 2 very different versions of it, though. It's a solid movie, one that I'm looking forward to watching again, but I don't think it's running quite hard enough.
I got a grenade! Back at you.
And so, The Running Man is getting a 7. It's a very well put together film, and more so than not, it's full of charming performances, clever little details, and some frankly less outlandish than I'd like social commentary. Even though Edgar Wright's stamp isn't clearly on every sequence like some of his previous work, The Running Man sprints where it needs to, giving Glenn Powell his first chance to be a full-fledged action hero. It's a movie that lives up to its heritage, but it gets a little tonally caught between the book and its first, more Arnold-y adaptation. It does a few different things pretty well, instead of doing one thing really well.
I'm still here. you shit-eaters.
And that's what I thought of The Running Man from Edgar Wright and Glenn Powell. Let me know what you think of the original. You a bigger fan of the book or Arnold's version? And in the meantime, for more movie reviews about characters just trying to survive their difficult circumstances, check out what we thought of Predator Badlands. And for everything else, be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.
America, goddammit, and we don't tolerate no bullshit.
A movie I've been really looking forward to since CinemaCon is The Running Man. I just thought the trailers we saw for this thing looked incredible. It looked fantastic. They showed us the preview for it at CinemaCon. I was surprised by how great it looks. I love Glenn Powell. I love Josh Brolin. Most importantly, though, I love Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright is such a great director, and I just love his sensibility. And so everything about this looked and felt pretty cool to me. Now, the reviews that have come in haven't been great. They've been solid. I mean, it's got a 64%, which means, of course, if you got 100 critics, 64 of them like it, 36 of them don't.
He's got a very
All right, that's not a bad ratio, I suppose. But regardless, I was looking forward to going in and watching Running Man. So last night, I went to go see Running Man, and I gotta tell you, I was pretty disappointed. Rob, I know you and I have both been really excited about this film. But by the time I walked out, I was pretty disappointed. Now, look, let me say this. The movie's got a lot of good things going for it. I was telling Rob before the show started today that had they ended the film, let me say it this way. Let's say I got an emergency text message and I looked at my watch and I saw there was an emergency and I had to leave the theater, say an hour 15, hour 20 minutes into the film. I would have walked out of the theater going, damn, I want to see the rest of this. Because up until that point, I was having a good time. The best Edgar Wright movie? No, but it was a really good time. It was everything that I was kind of wanting it to be up until that point, right? It was quick, witty one-liners, some good shots of humor, fun action, and a little bit of subtle social commentary, which, if you know the original story of The Running Man, not the Arnold movie, the original story of Running Man, you know there's a lot of that. Actually, the whole thing is basically an allegory, regardless.
Okay.
And then, Rob, Michael Cera shows up in the movie. And he's great. I'm not the biggest Michael Cera fan in the world. I'm going to admit it. Great. And of course, Michael Cera worked with Edgar Wright before in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So Michael Cera shows up in it a little past halfway through the movie. And he's great. And I love the character. And I love everything that goes on around him. And you could probably tell, you can tell from the trailers because you only see Michael Cera in the trailers in one scene. I will tell you he's in more than that, but you know, he's not in the whole ton of the movie. So by the time like Michael Cera's character leaves, the film completely loses everything. It completely starts to unwind. What was fun became convoluted. What was charming became cringy. And the little kind of subtle stuff of social commentary they were doing in the first hour to an hour and 20 minutes suddenly became a big Harley Quinn sized mallet banging you over it, directly saying people should be this, and it was just so on the nose that it lacked, to use Robert Meyer Burnett's word, verisimilitude. It lacked any feeling of authenticity. It felt like a scripted speech. And then these bonker things start happening, and sometimes things can go bonkers, and that's great, but this just went bonkers as in, what are they even doing? What's happening now? And again, not to give anything away, but at some point, a female character shows up, and you'll see what I mean when you watch it. That by the time the credits rolled, I'm like, what the hell was she even there for? What is going on? It was... Rob, I'm telling you, it's a movie that had
a little bit of split personality disorder.
but it was
because again,
charged,
the first hour 15, hour 20 minutes,
days ago.
maybe even like up to an hour and 30, because the movie's like 2 hours and 10 minutes long, maybe even up to an hour and 30. I was having a really good time. It was fun. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just completely lost its way. It started, instead of everything flowing well, it became very jarbled. And it's like, why did that just happen? Who does this? Who says this? Wait a minute. The bad guy just did this. That makes no sense when he obviously would be in a much better place if he did this instead. I mean, you know, honestly, Rob, you know what it felt like? It felt like 2/3 of the way through making this movie, Edgar Wright decided to go to Disneyland. And he left the film to somebody else to finish. That's honestly how jarring it feels to me. And, you know, sometimes, Rob, I'll watch a movie and where I like the first 2 acts but don't like the 3rd act. But a lot of the times the first 2 acts are so good, yeah, the 3rd act didn't ruin it for me. Yeah, like the 3rd act lost its way, but it didn't ruin it for me. The 3rd act of this movie to me is so poor that it actually soured the rest of the movie for me.
Wow.
And while there are, again, I can't stress this enough, some really good things going for it in the first hour and a half or so, and it's a fun ride for the first hour and a half, it just goes completely off the rails to the point that I walked out, that I can say, I don't think I've ever said this about an Edgar Wright film, and I never want to again. I walked out going, that was disappointing. And now again, don't just take it from me. Keep in mind, this movie still has a 64%, which means the majority of the critics who've seen it like it. So that you may like it, right? I'm just one person. I'm just one voice giving you my opinion. But I am one person who I'm predisposed to liking Edgar Wright stuff because I love Edgar Wright, and I loved all the previews, and I was loving the first bit of the film, Rob, and it just lost its way. Guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video.
Yeah, currently at 64% with the critics, and then top critics is 53%. Verified audiences 79, 4 out of 5 stars, and then our audience is 76, 3.9 out of 5 stars. The audience typically like it because they know what they're getting themselves into. They know not to anticipate a lot with this movie. Critics, I don't know. They seem to gauge it from like technical aspect or whatever.
Video, Zapier. You know, one of the biggest game changers of the past year has been AI. But let's be real, just talking about AI doesn't actually make your day any more productive. What does make it more productive is finding tools to put AI to work for you. And that's where Zapier comes in. Zapier is the easiest way to take AI and plug it directly into the apps and processes that you're already using every day. No IT bottlenecks, no complexity, just results. For me, it's been about saving time on repetitive stuff so I can focus on the work that matters and I actually enjoy. And it's not just me. Over 3.4 million companies are already using Zapier to streamline everything from sales and marketing to IT and HR. With their AI orchestration platform, you can connect top AI models like ChatGPT or Claude right into the apps you already use. So whether it's automatically enriching leads, coaching your sales team, or even resolving IT tickets, Zapier makes it simple. Guys, join the 3.4 million companies already automating with Zapier and transform how you work with Zapier and AI. Get started for free by visiting zapier.com/Campea. That's zapier.com/Campea. Now, I know, Rob, you'd been excited about this movie too. You did not go to see it yesterday, though, because you got caught up in a TV show, which
Pluribus,
that's happened to me before. But, you know, where have your expectations been, and what have you been hearing other than just from me?
Well, you know, I read this book when it first came out, I think in '82, and it, you know, the 1987 Running Man, believe it or not, was actually, it was not really based on the book. It was actually based on a French film and there was a plagiarism case that went on for 11 years, and they found it in favor of the director of the French film, that the original Running Man ripped off that other movie that was based on a 1958 Robert Sheckley short story. So I never got the Running Man I wanted to see. I wanted to see the book. So when I saw the trailer with you at CinemaCon, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see this. And Edgar Wright obviously is somebody that I know is an imagination connoisseur par excellence, like he is. He must have read the book too, which, you know, he did. So I'm really excited. I'm going this afternoon to see it, and I'm really excited to see this, even though it's been mixed. But I understand, because it's the thing about this book is there's a lot of elements from it that we've seen in a lot of other things. And I think that happens with a lot of these famous books, or they get adapted. Like Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, they've taken a lot of things from her Vampire Chronicles and incorporated them into movies that we've seen since those books were published. So, and obviously the actual ending of the book is incredibly problematic, and I'm not going to say why, but they have to change it. They couldn't, so they've changed that ending. But I mean, look, from what I've heard, this movie's beautifully produced. It's really lush. It's fun to watch. As you said, Glenn Powell's great in it. But I'm sorry to hear that it goes off the rails in the third act. But the third act was always, to me, going to be problematic because they couldn't end it the way they ended the book. And I'm curious to see how that goes. So
listen, Glenn Powell is a superstar. Glenn Powell's a superstar. A lot of that stuff that I was talking about the first hour and a half or so that was really clicking and worked, a lot of that is carried on the charismatic shoulders of Glenn Powell and his natural charisma. And he's an action star, man. I mean, really. The problem with the film certainly wasn't him. He was really good, and I'll look forward to seeing him more stuff like this. But yeah, as somebody who had been really excited for this movie, guys, and as somebody who is a die-hard Edgar Wright fan, I gotta say I was pretty disappointed with The Running Man, unfortunately. But whatever. Everybody has a bad day at the office. This one was Edgar Wright's, and I'll still look forward to his next project with great excitement. But yeah, it's gotta be honest, guys. This one didn't really work for me. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, I may not have liked it, but there are other critics who did. Again, it's got a 64%, which means the majority of the critics seem to like it, and maybe you will too, and I hope that you do, but it just didn't click for me. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.
Okay, I've tried to put it off, but I guess I should jump into it. So, Mauler and I have both seen The Running Man tonight. And, yeah.
I don't know. Start with, like, the original just real quick is a real fun, neat movie, but I guess it isn't a very faithful adaptation, but it's what everyone knows The Running Man to be.
Here's the best way I could equate this, right? You know how Stephen King wrote The Shining, and Stanley Kubrick did the adaptation of it, and it was very unfaithful to the book, but is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Then Stephen King, like 20 years later, made his own like TV movie version of it, and it was an absolute fucking disaster. That's kind of what you're facing with The Running Man. It's like it's much more faithful to the book, as far as I understand it, but it's a terrible movie, and it absolutely wastes Glenn Powell as a leading man. It is slow. It's ponderous. It wastes Edgar Wright's talents. Like, I don't even know what they were going for with this one. Like, you know how he's known for his snappy editing and his quick fixing and the razor sharp dialogue. None of those things will be found in this movie. It is like
the dialogue's notably shit. It's very disappointed.
Yeah. So yeah, it was an absolute slog to get through, and it is not a short movie either. I think it's well north of was it 2.5 hours?
Really?
I think so.
The first one's only like an hour and 35 minutes.
a lean and mean 1980s action flick, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you, man, I have got more respect that movie now. When I see how they took the source material and adapted it into like a nice, snappy,
because they omitted a lot.
action thriller type movie with sci-fi elements that moves along at a fair clip. It's got plenty of stakes in it. The main character, you understand exactly how he ended up in this predicament,
I've played the original game
and it flows
tons of
nicely.
times.
This movie does none of those things.
Also, I'm not going to say like Running Man original is perfect or anything,
There's
but
so much
man, the
in the
amount of times Glenn Powell is
original
just
1999
bailed out by the plot.
omitted in the remake. That's why
Yeah,
it's
just
not
throughout the whole movie, every time something difficult happens, they'll just be like, "Don't worry, this incredibly lucky thing happened," and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Like
You
armor
said that they
plot
omitted anything.
over
They just
years.
replaced
Oh,
a few
yeah, 100%.
minor
Armor,
things
sorry,
that
not
the
armor
fans-
plot.
He's
Okay, we could
he
do
is
that.
shot
We can
at
see how
throughout
we
this movie
fix that
by
up.
so many
Maybe
different
we do
guns.
that.
Just no bullets
They
will
just
ever hit him. They'll always hit all
Because
around him.
You're not gonna flesh
It's
out
like,
remake
Stormtrooper
as
aim, got it.
aspect. It's not gonna
Like
be like a,
Muller, like probably a good
I don't think
encapsulation of all the
just
problems in this movie is like the
updated
segment with Michael Cera when he goes to that guy's house and he's like this
Oh God!
'cause it's
doomsday
not that,
prepper.
It's not
Yeah.
as I think, because that's what you wanted.
He's living with his crazy
finally
old
get
mum
a remake,
who's like
and then
senile
you
and
still don't
stuff,
like
and
it,
she
'cause you say,
really
"Oh,
wants
this is
Ben
Cooper
Richards
Cotton
to
Face
fucking
movie."
die. Like she
That's
absolutely
exactly what
hates
you
him.
asked
And they've got an alarm
asking
like built on
Santa
their
for
wall, so if they hit it, it'll alert
ask
the
Santa for a
corporation
brand new
that's
toy,
hunting
and
for
you
him,
don't like it.
and they'll
Motherfucker,
come
don't ask me
and
for shit
like
else.
try and arrest him, right? So she wants
Yeah.
to hit it, and the son stops her, and then he hits it himself, and he's like, "We've got 4.5 minutes before they get here." How does he know that? Don't fucking know. And then I kid you not, an entire SWAT team arrives within 20 seconds and
Yeah.
starts shooting at them.
Well,
how did they get there? I don't know.
You've kind of gone over the part that I think is the worst about that. It's like the writing's so pathetic. They enter the house, she's there. They overtly and explicitly show you this moment where she's just like, "I hate the guy on the TV," which is the main character. And you're like, "Oh, okay." And then he's like, "Whoa, isn't this going to be a problem?" Michael Cera's like, "Nah, she's basically deaf. She's not going to do anything. She'll never know. It's fine. She's crazy old and hates you, but it's fine. Don't worry about it." Next scene, "Oh no, she's gone crazy. She wants you dead, and she knows you're here." It's just like, well,
I suppose we should go back a little. Let's rewind it a little bit, right? So you guys probably know the plot of the
What is
original
this?
Arnold Schwarzenegger
I'm already
movie,
logged
right?
in.
And
What are you doing?
It's something broadly similar to begin with, right? It's like a dystopian future where everyone's
What are you
poor,
doing?
and they entertain the masses with these blood sport type TV shows, right? And there's like one where they have a fat guy running on a treadmill, answering questions until he gets them wrong, and then he fucking falls off a cliff or something. Anyway, the top of the tier is The Running Man, where you win $1 billion, whatever that equates to, I don't know, in this new world. And Glenn Powell's character volunteers for it because his kid's sick and his family's got no money and all the usual stuff.
they remind you like 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
My wife and my kid. I'm doing this for my wife and my kid. Also my wife and the kid. They even flash it on screen when someone, I think Josh Brolin mentions his wife and kid, and they just show an image of it. And I was like, yeah, I know, movie. Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Which is crazy for Edgar Wright because he, the Cornetto trilogy just believes in the audience's intelligence,
And you know what I'm going to also say? I think the original movie did a better job.
I think so too.
Putting Richards into, because he's not really volunteering for it. He gets like cajoled into it because he's been framed for like a mass killing of people that he didn't do. And it actually it really makes use of like the media manipulation and like AI deepfakes even back then, like in the 80s. It somehow predicted that shit. But anyway, like he was forced into it. This guy volunteers. And instead of the original game where you were turned loose in this sort of wasteland and you had to survive for the night, basically. It was all shown live. This one is a fucking drawn-out month-long affair where you have to survive for 30 days on the run. You can be turned in or you can be reported by any member of the public. So if a member of the public sees you, they can call the corporation or whatever or raise the alarm. And if you get caught, they get like $1 million or something, so that everyone's got an incentive to like report you. And you can't just like hide in a fucking hole for a month because every day you have to record a 10-minute tape and send it to the network to prove that you're alive and like give some kind of clue about what you're doing, so that they've got some sort of update.
It's a little
Obviously,
Hunger Gamer-ish. It's a little Hunger Gamer-ish.
But it's just like a really boring version of it where he's just walking
what
through
Drink is
city
highlighting there
streets.
is the thrust of it gets really awkward because every once in a while it's just like, well, settle down time. I'll have a lie down. And she's like, oh, okay.
Anytime it gets difficult for him, like, because he spends his first 3 days just holed up in a nice hotel. Like, he puts on a fake mustache and goes into the hotel and just checks himself in. It does nothing for like 3 days. So, yeah, fucking thrilling stuff. Then he has to go on the run because they find him. It turns out they obviously know where he is at any time because they can track him. And it's just, they literally spin the game out for ratings. Like, they could kill him anytime they want. There's like 3 runners. They always pick them based on certain characteristics. So there's going to be the useless guy who gets caught within the first couple of days, the wild card who just like kind of self-destructs and maybe lasts a week before they go out in a blaze of glory, and then the final guy, as they call it, who's like the actual good guy who might make it to the end, but they obviously make sure that he never actually will win. But it's just, it's so slow, and like every time it's getting fast-paced or like overwhelming, as Mahler says, the plot will jump in and save him, and another like family or another resistance guy will take him in and like give him another bit of plot exposition and keep him safe for a day or two, and then off he goes again. And it's just so fucking dull and meandering, and you've no idea where it's going, and you don't really care. There's no sense of urgency really to it, which is weird. The stalkers that you had in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, you know how they were these big like gladiator types, like larger than life personalities, like fucking guy who throws like lightning bolts, or a guy with a chainsaw.
Sub-Zero.
Yeah, these guys are just like generic soldier dudes. Like, there's nothing to them. They're just guys with guns who just follow you. That's all it is.
It's really boring.
Well, they based the original ones a lot on, like, at the time, pro wrestling personalities just to the extreme. Like, Jesse Ventura was in it, so that makes sense.
Yeah. The better choice.
And yeah, like, I feel like Glenn Powell is a pretty good actor. He's a pretty charismatic leading man, but you would never know it from this movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like the script wastes him, but you can tell he's giving a performance that you're like, oh man, could have been cool to see him in a.
You're watching a good actor having to say really shit dialogue.
Oh no!
If at least got nothing to work with.
So, guys, how is I'm about to go see this in a couple hours. So who writes the script? Is it Edgar Wright, or is he just hired gun directing?
I will tell you.
And how is, like, you brought it up earlier, Mahler, the Cornetto trilogy is a masterclass in editing.
Yeah.
Like, use of time in editing. All 3 movies are just brilliant.
I just want to acknowledge that the chat is doing a great job with bringing up all of the puns that he does in the first movie. I think that should be
They're so
acknowledged.
good.
Here's Sub-Zero. Now Plane Zero.
Plane Zero.
Edgar Wright he co-wrote it with Michael Bacall.
Do you think he's just had his
Scott Pilgrim
time,
versus
Mahler?
the World.
What was that?
Do you think he's just had his time?
Yeah. I think I'm coping if I say anything else at this point, because I adore the Cornetto trilogy. They're 3 of my favorite movies, so it's almost impossible for me to say anything bad about him. But at this point, it's gotten a bit ridiculous. Baby Driver, I thought, like, has the editing and the sort of the filmmaking of the Cornetto trilogy, but not the characters, not the stories. So it's like, okay, you have to wait. Last Night in Soho, I thought was pretty damn bad. Again, editing's really solid in that film, but I kind of hated the story in that. Scott Pilgrim was pretty good, But again, the problem is just like, oh, that's actually ages ago. And then it's like, what have you done recently?
Yeah.
And it's like this.
I actually like Scott Pilgrim, the movie, way more than I like the comic at all, because I hated the comic.
The movie was fine. It was pretty fun. But yeah, like
I don't know what's happened to him as a storyteller. I don't know what's going on.
It's like all of the life and energy that he brought to the Cornetto trilogy, like, has been sucked out of him. And it's like he had no interest in doing this movie and he was forced into it or something. That's what it feels like.
It's like the difference between American and British cinema, though. I feel like that's really what it is. It seems like all the good stuff that comes from mostly is from his British days, and then when he comes over to the American side, it maybe it's I would assume it's probably studio interference, a lot of that.
I mean, it could be, like, there's no tone to it either, right? Because obviously his forte is like fast-paced comedy, but with dramatic elements that, like, you know, when they do decide to get serious, you can really get invested in it. Here it sort of meanders between like trying to do like goofy comedy scenes and stuff, but then dead serious, like my family's just been murdered and I'm gonna like fly a fucking plane into this building to kill myself. Like that's how extreme it goes between the two. But neither of them feel earned, and neither of them feel like he's committed to either of them. Like it just feels like, well, that's what the script says I have to do, so there we go. But like there's no thought for how that works.
I'm just gonna go skip ahead because all he's doing is talking the same shit and.
Big games, big finales, big relief. Get 100 plus channels of live sports, movies, and TV in one place. YouTube TV. Try it free. Terms apply. Cancel anytime.
Right, The Running Man has bombed. All disaster for this film. Genuine disaster. Great win for Lionsgate, though. Now You See Me 3 took the crown at the box office. So, thought we'd take a look at the box office. Running Man has really... Yeah, I mean, it's bombed, basically. It's disaster for the film. Dreadful.
See how he laughed?
I quite liked it.
Oh, he liked it, but he's laughing at the fact that it's bombing at the box office. Yeah, we'll fan, buddy. We'll movie goer.
Yeah, I thought it was, I don't know, fun throwback type film for me.
I do like its jacket. I think its jacket's very similar to mine. Kind of want to wear it now.
Harmless action flick, but maybe people wanted more from it, which is fair, completely fair. But it bombed, which goes to show, I guess, as much as Glenn Powell is kind of bringing the movie star back, not quite yet. Not quite yet. Or is it a case of the property itself? Who knows? Maybe the director. Who knows? But let's take a look. Please do hit subscribe if you're new here. Genuinely, just check you are subscribed as well. YouTube has been doing some weird stuff lately. Mark my words, very, very strange stuff. I've had people say, hey, I haven't seen one of your videos for like 6 months. What's going on? YouTube has been just doing weird stuff. So just check you're subscribed. If you could, that'd be great. But let's take a look at this box office report courtesy of Deadline. They're very, very good with their projections. So although this says Sunday AM, the projections 99% of the time pretty much bang on. So worthwhile taking a look at as it is. So as they say, there's plenty of surprise out there for Lionsgate #1 win with Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which is the third movie in these franchise. Is it a franchise? In this film series, which did $21 million, but only a global take of $75.5 million. So that was obviously $54 million from offshore. China did 19.2. I think what's interesting about this is Now You See Me, Now You Don't was the #1 at the domestic box office with $21 million. Now that's actually the biggest story, isn't it? You could be #1 at the box office this weekend with only $21 million. That's actually really bad. And it goes to show the overall state of the film industry at large. Great for Lionsgate. They've done well. But the movie theatres are going to look at this and go, well, that's crap, right? Like $21 million is enough to be #1 at the box office. That's really bad. It's not a big amount. Now, it might be a high amount for, you know, profit and loss, and to see whether you exceeded your budget with your intake, maybe, sure. 21 million overall, not great. Not great. And as they say here, there was clearly more goodwill out there for this IP than, say, for a revival of an Arnold Schwarzenegger 1980 sci-fi film that is clear as Paramount's Glenn Powell starring, Edgar Wright directed Running Man falls behind on its 20 million plus, tracking to $17 million. Maybe even less, it says, by tomorrow morning with NFL Today. This movie arrived on tracking in the 20 million range and wouldn't budge it up further. In incoming Paramount marketing boss Josh Goldstein, this individual is told, tried to change up some thematic elements in the trailer from the initial ridiculousness of the whole world pursuing Powell's Ben Richards in the first trailer. One decision rival distributors aren't faulting Paramount for on Running Man is the release date. the mid-November release date is the highly coveted James Bond date. It's a great place to launch any movie aimed at men. At least there's the Thanksgiving stretch, which can give Running Man a bit of a path. Now, I don't necessarily think Running Man will be a bomb overall, but we'll look at that in a second. I just think, how can you be number one at the box office with 21 million? That's insane. That's not a lot. It's not a lot of money at all. Like, that's really such low money. And I think the reason why the Running Man may actually end up doing all right is 80% on audience score, right? 80% audience score, which isn't bad. All ratings slightly lower, but it goes to show not many people are bothered about watching this overall, right? I mean, 1,000+ reviews on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty bad for a film. It's pretty bad. So that Rotten Tomatoes, take it or leave it in terms of whether it's a good, it's a good movie site to look at. But if you look at just the numbers, that's why I think it's quite a worthwhile website to look at. So the percentage might not be super high. Fine, sure, take or leave that. But the amount of people engaging with the website to review it is really low. And that's a worthwhile metric to look at. But even Now You See Me, Now You Don't, or whatever it's called, even that didn't have very high amount of engagement either. 500+. It's not exactly a lot, is it? That's pretty bleak overall. Which is, yeah, pretty bad. It goes to show not many people are coming to the theatres this weekend as a whole. Pretty disastrous, I think. And the thing is, this movie, Running Man, cost $110 million to make. So as this article notes, roughly $275 million worldwide to break even. So could it do it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think it may genuinely struggle. It may struggle. So we've got the breakdown of Running Man, just to kind of see, which I think is interesting. So, Running Man clearly shows that you can't just align the Austin Texan native with any old property. 55% of those who bought tickets to Running Man went because it looked fun and exciting. Exiting? Deadline, fuck's sake. 40% for the sci-fi genre ahead versus 35% for PAL. But that's still big. Still over a third of people going specifically because of PAL. So the other sad takeaway here is that in a theatrical marketplace starving for new franchises, now the industry has to exercise great caution in rebooting old 80s IP, like Tron Ares, for instance. And
which was another good movie. Another good movie.
It's not great. It's not good. I mean, as a breakdown, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. And again, the film was... I didn't hate it. Good fun overall. Not bad at all. I had a decent time with it. Predator Badlands, though, how's that holding up? I think that's the interesting one here. And we'll just kind of scroll through all the way down to how they rounded up. Oh, they haven't rounded up. That's a bit frustrating. We'll scroll back up then. Yeah, it's not doing too bad. Did a 60... What is it looking like? A 66% drop off from first to second week. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's quite low, but still not horrendous. So there you go. Interesting. Running Man has bombed. Will it leg out to being a success? I don't know. I'm gonna... I think word of mouth is okay on it, but I think people are just a bit done with Hollywood for a little while, which is a shame, I think. Anyway, there you go. Thoughts down below. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Alright. Before we really go forward with the...
I am Dumbledore, Lord Voldemort.
Professor Snape.
Dobby. And this is Harry Potter, like you've never heard it before.
Harry Potter the full cast audio editions. Listen on Audible.
Interesting. Interesting. We're not going to go watch Cody right now. I've got to get ready for something. But, you know, this is 20 minutes. I'm going to watch someone else first. Honestly. We'll go back to the playlist and switch it out. Switch out some of these reviews. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, let's go to Film Threat.
Tell me the story of The Running Man.
The Running Man.
Well, the Edgar Wright's version of the story with Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
Not sure if you noticed my shirt. This is Glenn Powell from the various Glenn Powell films, but give me the story of The Running Man, starring Glenn Powell, made by Edgar Wright. The remake or the reimagining, because this is based more on the book. The Stephen King
that's
book.
interesting.
All right, give it to me.
Yeah, Glenn Powell stars as Ben Richards. He's a father. He has a daughter who's very sick. And because he exposed the company he worked for on several occasions, for several companies, he is on the blacklist. He can't get work. So the only way he can make money to get the medicine for his daughter is to appear on a game show. And so he's just kind of watching television, marking down game shows. But the one that stands out is The Running Man, where he could win $10 billion, new dollars, if he can survive 30 days of being hunted. And he tells his wife, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. The wife is going to go get a sketchy job in order to pay for medicine. He decides he can't let that happen. He's going to go down to the network and get on one of these game shows. And Josh Brolin plays the executive producer who sees him in line and says, that's our running man. That's the guy who's going to be the running man for the last run of the season. He's also accompanied by Katie O'Brien, who plays who's also going to be in The Running Man, and then that kid from Saturday Night Live, who's no longer on the show. He's the third one, and those two are going to get killed off right away. Sorry, but the whole movie now is about Glenn wanting to earn money for his daughter so she can live. He enters the game. There's all these rules to it. He has to. They give him a little bit of money so he can get costumes and things like that. But he also has to record testimonials, like reality shows, put them in mailboxes, do it once a day, or
he has to do it's like proof of life, right? Like he has to once a day do a video of where he is and send it into the show.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, he has allies along the way. But that's, you've seen Arnold's version. This is a much more grounded version. There's no military conspiracy going on here. This is a story about class. It's about the rich and the poor and the rich, it's the Colosseum. The rich watching the poor try to survive, and that's I'll let you talk about it. But to me, in my mind, was the first Running Man was campy and over the top. This one is campy but dramatic.
And guess what? That's the mistake. It's campy and dramatic, and the tones don't match. Right. I can't believe Edgar Wright directed this. The guy who, if you go back and watch Baby Driver, that movie has heart. It's so expertly directed in the way it portrays the action, the soundtrack, and the music. It's so good.
My favorite
and
part.
I love the Edgar Wright's early work, of course, is so good. And
destruction.
This is a mess. And it's this future dystopian world that it's like Timu Minority Report. That's what it felt like. And Glenn Powell's character is, they spend all this time in the beginning, my sick kid, and you see him with his wife. They just do not seem like a couple. He's super blue collar, working class, and she's like this very beautiful.
Yeah, she's pretty hot.
Very beautiful woman dressed elegantly as a waitress who, she could go down a dark path to make more money, but she doesn't.
This is 14, this is
and
15, this
they
is 12.
just do. I don't buy them as a couple. I'm sorry. I just don't. And so much of this.
Why do you have to buy anybody? Why do you have to buy anybody as a couple? Why does anybody gotta be convincing? Dude, come on. I gotta get ready.
Movie just didn't work. Coleman Domingo as the host was just. He's no Richard Dawson. I feel like the camp of the first one is a lot like.
Please stop comparing it to the original. Please, you've already said what people have already said. It's not like the original. It's not like the original. It's more like the book. Stop comparing it.
Reminiscent of RoboCop, in the sense that it's over the top satire. You get it. And this
it is over the top.
Just the tones don't mix. Just doesn't. In the end, really, and the ending, which we won't talk about. We'll talk about it on Monday on Versus when more people have had a chance to see it. But the ending, there's so many logic things having to do with the ending, and then also just with how did this? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Josh Brolin is actually very good as the, show producer. It's kind of over the top evil. He pulls that off, but my God, this film is an utter mess. It's gruesome and comedic, but it's a mix of tones that don't work. Now you can mix tones, right? But I feel like it's overly dramatic here and then satirical and ridiculous. And they might have, there's a really good scene in the beginning where they're doing a psychological profile of Glenn Powell's character, right? Ben Richards.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds. My goal is to spend as little as possible on things like commercials, so we can pass more savings to customers. And when I saw what they're charging for holiday-themed stock videos these days, well, you could see what I decided to do. And that means we can afford to offer unlimited for $15 a month. So,
is that his name?
Yes.
Ben Rich. Yeah. And they ask him, they give him words. It's like they're playing this word association, and you get to know who he is right off the bat. Why not start the movie there? They have all this backstory. They're poor. Their daughter's sick.
Yeah, you have to build sympathy for 20 minutes.
You build sympathy. It's like, I get it. He's holding a baby. He's holding his baby who he brought to his old work to beg for his job back. I mean, just, it was like everything was so on the nose. And as soon as they like they just spelled everything out, which got annoying. And the side characters, they spend way too much time with the side characters. Like one of the characters has like a YouTube channel. This guy Bradley Throckman, whatever, Throckman, played by Daniel Ezra, has this, YouTube channel where he exposes the Running Man. Michael Cera also plays this kind of obsessed with the Running Man show, who's trying to help him with weapons. He's way too gleeful about taking out the hunters. It's
stop, please, just enough.
They're just insufferable. Man, just so much of this movie. I couldn't wait for
everything is insufferable to you. Everything. From the Tron Ares to the last movie that was insufferable. I forgot. Oh, Alien Badlands. Insufferable. Just insufferable across the board.
This movie to be over.
Software,
I could not wait. Even though I really you don't have to convince me to like Glenn Powell or feel sorry for him. I already like him because you cast him. That's why you cast actors like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I like him. I like Stallone. You've already established I like this guy. You don't need to have more sympathy by my baby's dying of cancer. Like, I get it. I just oh my God. It doesn't even feel like, it feels like an Edgar Wright movie where he may have been messed with a lot, or it felt like he didn't care. He had probably so many notes, and the movie is just he does a terrible job world building. I compare this to Sinners. Sinners, there's no comparison between these two movies. The first 10 minutes of Sinners, the world building is so amazing. You get where characters fit in the world, what the world is, what the stakes are. And in this, everything seems forced. And again, like I said, Temu Minority Report. I did not like this film at all. I'm very disappointed because I do really enjoy Edgar Wright as a filmmaker, but I feel like this movie feels noted to death. It feels like they recut it a bunch of different ways, and the end result is a mess. Alan, what do you think?
Yeah. Okay, so the obvious comparison is to the first one. The first one, the reason it worked is because it was an Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle. Yes. It was a movie. Yes, it was based on a Stephen King novel, but it was a movie designed and tailored for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
And there was an era in films where we had superstars, movie stars that drew people because they were in the movie. And the first Running Man drew people because Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the movie. And so you bought into the campiness, you bought into
I'm not really worried about the benefits.
You bought into just this outrageous story that you're about to see. The issue here is, Glenn Powell is not Arnold Schwarzenegger. We like him. We feel instant sympathy for him when he appears on screen. But it's like Predator, where you
see my point. Like Predator, they compare it. You have to stop comparing movies. Stop comparing shit.
The first Predator movie was an Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle. But now it's like, no, there's such gold in the story.
The first Predator movie was not even well likable in theaters. It got a very bad score. This is what somebody else said. I think it was the Bald Man. He said it. The first Predator movie was not good at the time of its release, 1987. It wasn't well received. But then over the decades, it became a legendary movie that people, were nostalgic bait. It was nostalgic bait, and they liked it more because future generations liked this movie. So the score got ramped up due to people rewatching it. When it was on VHS, Blu-ray, DVD, whatever. That's really what that is. A lot of movies were not well received during the original release dates. You know, back in the 80s and the early 90s. I think The Crow was not really... It was kind of a meh movie, a mid movie, and at the time it's released, but then people started to really like it. You know, also when Brandon Bruce Lee died, that kind of upped the ratings a bit. You know, they're like, oh, it's so sad. Let's go see this movie to honor his memory and his work. You know, and so and it kind of it also created some conspiracy theorists that were starting to believe that maybe Brandon Bruce Lee had faked his death just to make the movie do better in the box office, which, you know, turned out didn't happen. But what I'm saying is a lot of times movies, when they come out, during the original release dates, they don't do so well. They're not like Avatar, they're not like Avengers, they're not like Transformers or anything like that, you know. And otherwise, the sequels always do bad, you know, period. This is like Avatar, you know, the second or third. But this movie, you gotta stop comparing it to the original. It's already different from the original, clearly. You have to stop comparing it to other films like, you know, the first Predator movie. You know, it's like you gotta judge it by its own merits. I'd rather listen to somebody tell me what they think about this movie and judge it by its own merits. Because when you start to say, well, based on like the Predator, I'm gonna say, no, I don't want to hear about the Predator. I don't want to hear about the original. I want to hear about what you think about this one.
In The Running Man, we're going to go back to King's version. In The Predator, who cares about Arnold? We want backstory of what a tough life it is to be a hoocha or whatever they're called. That being said, I understand why people like Predator Badlands, because it has the flashing images, the action, a very thin story behind it. And that's kind of the way I felt about watching this. I didn't hate it like you, but as a film critic, they're two easy movies to review. It's really good movies and really bad movies, and this one just falls right in the center there. Because I could tell you things I like about it, I could tell you things I don't like about it. The things I like about it are those flashing images, the action, the how is he going to pull this off? You know, oh, he's being chased. How is he going to get out of it? You know, you're looking at it as a pure action movie. I think you're going to have fun with this. If you're looking for some kind of depth, if you're looking for some homage, you know, you really love Stephen King, you know, I guess you're going to want to see it. But there's something, but when you compare it to the first movie, it pales in that comparison.
Yeah, it's the first movie.
But at
also,
the same time, hold on. But at the same time, if this movie came on television, I'd probably sit down and watch it again. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I need to rush out of the theater, and I didn't feel like I never want to see this again. But at the same time, we're spending millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars on these movies. You should make me feel a little bit better than that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the original had Arnold and also Richard Dawson.
That was the reason.
His character, Richard Dawson's character in the original, that was built because it was like a farcical, satirical version of who he was on Family Feud.
Yeah, absolutely.
He made the show Family Feud. You tuned in to see him make snarky remarks to the family, and now it's an over-the-top version of that.
And Coleman Domingo didn't give you that in this movie.
He did not. He did not. And so, look, no one is going to remember this version. They will always remember the Arnold version. And the fact that so much money was spent to do this, and they couldn't get the world building right, like, it didn't work for me. Now, at the screening I went to, which was packed in IMAX, it kind of the ending fell flat with people. And it was a mixed reaction. Some people enjoyed it, to be fair. Some people at the screening I was at, they really enjoyed it. I did not. So I cannot recommend it. And I'm disappointed because I wanted to like it. I really wanted to like it. And I really love Edgar Wright as a filmmaker. But wow. He has...
This should have been a great movie, and it's a mediocre movie.
At the end, it's a mediocre movie for me. Cannot recommend. What about you?
Yeah, like I said, there's so much story potential in this in the story, and to just produce a mediocre movie, you know, it gets that bare recommendation. But I like you. I'm disappointed.
All right, well that's it for me. Now I gotta decide if I want to go.
Oh my god! I just won $60,000 for my car crash.
I wish. I gotta go decide if I'm gonna go to my job or if, in fact, I'm just gonna go see a movie. I'm supposed to go. I'm scheduled to go see Hamnet, an Oli release, but I have to work, and I'm seeing if my boss will grant me the shift off. So, yeah. I thought the movie was fine, honestly. I gave kind of my review. So, well, gotta go get with you.